Anna Bálint is the author of First Thief, a collection of short fiction spanning cultures and continents that was finalist for the Pacific Northwest Book Award. Two earlier books by her of poetry are Out of the Box and Spread Them Crimson Sleeves Like Wings. Her poems, stories, and essays have appeared in numerous journals and magazines, and in a special issue of Minerva Rising called Race in America. She is alumni of Hedgebrook's Writers in Residence. She's received numerous awards from the Seattle Arts Commission and For Culture. In fact, For Culture helped her put the CD together, right? The grant from For Culture in this book. And the CD was made at Jack Straw, and it's wonderful. It's just the featured poets in here, writers, poets, and prose. But there are other writers in here that are not featured. It's a very interesting group of people, and I'm telling you, this is fabulous work. You would not think that these were not published writers for many years, because it's outstanding. In 2001, she received a Leading Voice Award in recognition of her creative work with urban youth at El Centro de la Raza. She has taught creative writing for many years and in many places besides the cafe, including prisons, El Centro de la Raza, and Chuck University and Richie Cooper House. Currently, she is a teaching artist with art and at Recovery Cafe in Seattle, where she founded and leads Safe Place Writing Circle. Please welcome, just before she comes on, Ruby from the cafe is going to talk a little bit.
Ruby from the Recovery Cafe.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi.
Hi, Ruby.
Anna, of course, needs no introduction, but I bring you greetings and gratitude from our community. For those of you that don't know, we are a recovery community of men and women, and everyone is welcome in recovery from mental illness, drug and alcohol addiction, and many from the trauma of homelessness. And I just say that by way of context, because there are three things I want to say about Anna, and the context matters. Into our community, Anna brought a writing circle, a safe place, a writing circle that invited voice to be found and expressed among the people who didn't think they had a voice to share. So that's no small gift. But then she took it up a notch. And not only did she create space, she showed up week after week for years and years. And she'll talk about that history, but I think for 6 or 7 years. Again, no small thing in a community that is accustomed to instability. So thank you for that, Anna. Not enough for her. Take it up a notch. She goes further. She builds a safe place for people to write. She creates it so that people can come back to it. And then she sends the group out into the community for events like today. And that's a huge gift, to be confident and creative and compassionate and so sure that voices need to be heard to make space for it in our community and in the larger community. So thank you, Anna. You rock.
Thank you, Ruby, and thank you to the library for letting us have this room, and of course thank you to Raven Chronicles, but most of all, thank you to my students who come to Safe Place. And there's quite a number of you here, and you'll be hearing from them later, which I guarantee will be the high point of this entire event. To wait. You have to kind of get through me first. So, the way I'm going to organize things this afternoon is I'm going to share a little of my own creative work, so that I'm not this sort of anonymous person who comes and does this stuff, but there's no, you don't hear my voice. And then I'm going to talk more about the whole history of Safe Place, and sort of more where it came from, how it came to be. And because when I showed up in 2012, now this is things that you wouldn't know really, but it's kind of like, in a way I have been searching for an opportunity to do this for quite some years, based on experiences I'd had in other writing situations. And I knew this was something that was needed. and I just knew if there was a chance, a place where I could give it a home, which is what the From the Café has done, that this thing could fly. So, it's exciting that that's happened, but you need to know some of the backstory. Okay, but first, I'm gonna just share a couple of pieces of my work, and I just want to put them in a context. Is one of the things that I think is important in Safe Place is that I don't feel that there's any wall whatsoever between my life and the lives of the people that come into the room. I may not be a member of Recovery Cafe, but my life has been and is fraught with a lot of the same things that people are struggling with. So my family is riddled with mental illness. I have major depressive disorder myself and PTSD. There's a long history of trauma that's kind of laced through my family and affected my kids and stuff. And I even had a short period of homelessness when with my kids, whose father died when they were 2 and 4, and that was quite, an upheaval. But the pieces I'm going to share today are kind of like out of a long chapter, but a more recent chapter, which is that my first husband died, like I just said, and I remarried again in 1995, and my husband's in the room here, and barely were we married, and boom, a social worker, who is also in the room here, brings my 2 grandkids essentially for us to raise, because the situation was so chaotic with their teenage parents who were not in any shape at all to take on parenting. And we wound up, they're still living with us at this point. They're now 23 and 25. And one of them was 8 months old when he came to us, and the other had just turned 2. But along with that came sort of my introduction to fetal alcohol, which probably most of you have heard something about. Back at the time we got the kids, you virtually didn't hear anything about it. And it's like I had to learn very, very quickly, because I knew that the older of the 2, the 2-year-old, who was not my biological grandson, but it was almost a given that he was going to be suffering from some fetal alcohol damage from his teenage mother, who was on the streets a lot, and not just drinking, sniffing glue, getting high on whatever. And yes, he does. He has this invisible disability, which his mother also has. And these pieces are both related to that. One has to do with this grandson, and the other has to do with his mom. Okay? So in the backdrop is this fetal alcohol. So the first piece is called Thriving. In the summer of his 13th year, my grandson Jesse, a thin-limbed boy not yet plagued by adolescent urges, took it into his head to clear the land out back of the house. Land intended as a community garden until the developer walked away from the project, leaving a community wasteland, a barren place, scattered with construction debris, a place soon overrun by thistles and blackberry bushes. That summer, Jesse went out each day, with a hoe, a rake in his hands, clearing the land bit by bit, staying out for hours at a time. Some days, he came bounding into the house to invite me out to admire his progress, showing me how much he'd cleared with expansive sweeps of his thin brown arms, wanting me to look at a pile of rocks and concrete chunks. See, Nana, I'll use them to build raised bed for vegetables. And within a week, the raised bed was built. Neighbors noticed and admired his work, telling him and me he was a fine young man. And of course I agreed. That summer was hot and dry. Some days Jesse remembered his water bottle, other days needed me to remember for him. Needed reminders to drink the water, because some days he registered thirst, but other days did not. Every day, there was the need for frequent checks to make sure he was indeed still out there and hadn't wandered off the way he was wont to do if he became bored or distracted. Making sure the faulty wiring in his brain was not at that very moment misfiring and leading him astray and maybe into danger. But all summer long, that swatch of land absorbed him, kept him safe, and made him happy. And not once did his brain betray him. It was the end of August when he burst into my office, excited to announce he'd now moved on to planting and had planted a tree, or what would one day be a tree. And I followed him out to see a small spindly stick we found growing in the passageway between our house and the house next door. It needed a proper place to grow, he said, so I rescued it and planted it here where it has space and sunlight and a chance to thrive. Everything deserves a chance to thrive, he said. And of course I agreed. Today, that tree, exact species still uncertain, is the tallest thing in a community garden with 7 raised beds for vegetables, a strawberry patch, apple, plum, and fig trees, also maples, willows, lilacs, and shrubs and flowers of all sorts. A habitat for birds and butterflies, a meandering path, benches to sit on, an arbor thick with wisteria. As for my Jessie, grown broad-shouldered and tall, the faulty wiring in his brain had not changed. By his 18th birthday, he'd faced arson and assault charges, attempted suicide, served a 6-month sentence in a juvenile facility, and almost died from alcohol poisoning. So that's the son. And here is the mom. And this is going back to where, at this point of her story, Jessie would have been about maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old, something like that, little. And this is called, It's Like This. Okay, here's the deal. You want to know? There's something wrong with my brain. So now you know. Let it drop. Why are you asking anyway? Why people always gotta be in my business? Why people always gotta know stuff? Okay, you wanna know, so it's like this. My mom drank when she was pregnant with me. She drank a whole lot. She didn't care about me then, she doesn't care about me now, so she drank and she partied, and now they tell me it messed up my brain. End of story. Except, don't ever call me stupid. I'm not a retard, right? I got above average intelligence. Ask the doctors, I'm smart. Go figure. I can't explain it. That's why I never want to talk about it, because no one ever gets it. People think I'm just messing up on purpose, but I'm not. I mean, why would I do stupid stuff on purpose? I'm trying to get my life together. I got 2 children who need me and are waiting for me to get things together so they can come and live with me. Then something happens like happened the other night, and the next thing you know, someone's called the police. I mean, I ended up in some guy's car. How messed up is that? Suddenly I'm just sitting in this car with some creep who's got his hand going up my leg. Don't ask me who he is, I don't know. Some pervert. But the thing about it is, I got in his car. He didn't drag me in, I just got in. Except that when it was happening, I wasn't thinking about it or whether it was a good move or not. It just happened. No, it's not a blackout. I'm trying to tell you. I remember stuff later. 5 or 10 minutes or a whole day or a whole week later, I can tell you what happened and what was wrong with it. But right then, when it's happening, I don't think and I don't know. My brain just wigs out. You're not getting it, are you? Okay, let me break it down. I work in a gas station, right? You know, minimum wage and all that. Hey, at least it's a job. So I work the midnight to 7 a.m. shift, which means I'm stuck in this little booth in the middle of downtown all night. But I don't mind, you know, because I turn the radio on and listen to music and talk to people when they come up to the window. I'm super friendly, like, have a nice night, drive careful now. I don't mind it, really. Everything's cool. But every once in a while, some fool has to spoil it. And that's when I realized, hey, I'm all by myself, and it's dead as a graveyard out there. Anything could happen. So the other night, some fool starts yelling at me because I wouldn't make change on 50. I kept pointing to the sign that says, no, correct change only after 11 p.m. I was trying to be nice about it, but he wouldn't quit. And it started giving me the creeps, being alone in that place and the way he was yelling. Then this other guy pulls up and comes over to the window to pay, and the first guy, he's still yelling. And the second guy's looking at him like, what's up with you? And goes to pump his gas. Then he comes back up to the window and asks me, hey, is he bothering you? You want out of there? You want to ride someplace? And I'm like, so stressed out, so just wanting to get the dude that's yelling at me off my back, I say, yeah, and I just hop in the car with this total stranger. And I'm in the car laughing and saying stuff like, man, I'm glad you got me out of there, because that fool was really tripping. I mean, I know I'm in some dude's car, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know where I am really or what I'm even doing, because it's one of those times, and I'm not thinking, I'm just going. Then he puts his hand on me, and it suddenly hits me. And I'm like, stop the car! But he won't stop, and he won't get his hands off me, and I end up having to jump out, and another car nearly hits me, and then that person rolls down their window and leans out yelling, what's the matter with you, girl? And I don't know. I'm just in the street, and someone's blasting their horn till it feels like my head's gonna bust. Then in the middle of all that mess, I remember I'm supposed to be at work. And somebody's probably got to the cash register by now. Probably that fool who was yelling about the 50. And I'm gonna get fired. See, my brain's kicked back in by then, and I'm thinking again, running up the street as fast as I can to get back to my job. But I'm so stressed out, I can't even get my bearings. I just know I'm gonna get fired, and I've done it again. I've messed up again, and I'm the dumbest broad on the face of the earth, and I'll never get my kids back. So what if some doctor tells me I'm not dumb? My brain is messed up, but I'm smart. I do dumb stuff, but I'm smart. It's just my synapses misfiring. Go figure, you think my boss cares? No, what happens is he calls the cops on me. I'm the one who took the money, right? Because if it was a robbery, why didn't I call the police? Hell, I didn't even go back there. What was the point? The money was going to be gone anyway, and no one was going to believe me. Who was there to back me up? The guy in the car? So I never went back. I just went on to my hotel and went to sleep. Till the night manager comes knocking on my door saying the police wanted to talk to me. So that's how it goes. And it gets hard sometimes. Real hard. You know what I mean? So now I have to transition and be me. Which is, I don't know if it's an improvement. So what I wanted to touch on in terms of this history of safe place is that some of these experiences along the way that taught me about two things in particular. One was the importance of safety, of emotional safety. And the other is the importance of continuity. It's something that you can count on. It's just there when you need it. And I think it first really started when I was working in public schools in California and was working in a program called compensatory education, which is a horrible name, and it's different from special ed, and it was basically where the sort of throwaway kids went, the ones that were quote-unquote failing. And almost all of these kids were kids of color, either African American, but also quite a lot of kids who were immigrants, English as a second language, quite a few refugee kids who came from trauma in that manner. And what struck me right off the bat was that, you know, that these kids, it wasn't that they couldn't read or didn't want to read, you know, they didn't have the mental capacity to read or anything like that. It was that, first and foremost, they needed to be met on their own terms for who they were, which meant sort of finding ways to engage them that resonated to them culturally, and just, you know, their sense of humor or their fears or whatever it was. And I found that there were certain children, and one of them, when I look back, I know now that she had fetal alcohol, probably considerably worse than my grandson or his mom. And she was also very, very bright, but extremely damaged, and she was in a foster home at the time. And in the classroom, she would just come unglued, and she would throw desks and spit and, you know, lash out, and never get anything done, right, and distract the whole class. For me to work with her, I had to sit with my arm right around her, for her to snuggle her. And when she was like that, she would calm down enough, and it turned out actually that she was a really stellar reader. She just took to it just, you know, like that. But she couldn't do it without that atmosphere of feeling safe. And I found that, you know, variations of that were true for all these children. And it also took the form of somebody in that environment where when they came to school in the mornings, there was someone that they could go to that they were also working with in the classroom that was there to give them a hug or for them to hug. Just, you know, as simple as that. And it really sort of made a big impression on me. And I was doing other work at that school. I was also doing after-school dance and drama classes. I have a background in dance and drama before I got involved as a writer. And I found that, particularly in the drama class, the kind of stuff that kids would bring in, you know, and want to share and create scenes from, and just the level of trauma that just about all these kids were experiencing or had experienced was just phenomenal. And you realize, you know, school in general expected these kids just to come to school and function and go in a classroom and sort of like be able to, like everybody else, and just get on and do it. And they couldn't. They couldn't. Some of them hadn't eaten. I mean, one really stark case was a little girl in first grade. She was the kind of little girl that got shunned by everybody, overweight, often had, you know, a stream of snot dripping down, dirty clothes with spatters on them. She became like a star when she so happened, she comes to school and says, Sadia, I saw you on the TV, I saw your family on the TV. Drive-by shooting. You know, her cousin nearly died, was in intensive care, 4 years old. The baby was shot, you know, didn't die, but full of shrapnel, and the uncle that was the target was wearing a bulletproof vest, and really nothing much happened. But for Sadia, it was like all of a sudden she was noticed. What a thing to have to go through, to be noticed. For, you know, to hear your name. I also found out through this that she was a kid that was not getting fed regularly. Even though, you know, she was overweight, she was getting all the wrong food, empty calories and stuff. And so she'd come to school hungry. And I remember sort of like way back when I first came to this country with the Panther Party at that time, you know, this was in the early 70s. Remember the breakfast program that they did in the schools? I mean, that was what was so cool about that program, was understanding that fundamental need. So these were some of the things I learned in that situation with those kids. And another thing was the fact that I was there. It wasn't like, I wasn't like a teacher even for a year. I was there the following year because I would work with them, you know, for a longer period of time. And the dance and drama classes were there. Then I had an experience later on when I first came to Washington of working at the women's prison down in Purdy, which oh God, I love working there. Except for all the stuff with the guards and everything you have to deal with. When the first time I went there, and these women come in to the room, and I looked around and I thought, my God, it was like, you just took one look at these women and you could tell what kind of lives they had. I don't think there was hardly a person in the room that had all their teeth in their mouth. You know, and just the number of scars that there were, you know, whether it's knife scars or whatever. I mean, these were people that had really hard lives and they're just being kicked to the curb. But what would happen in there, and again, it was a group that was ongoing. There was no pressure of that you have to do, you know, achieve X by this date. It was going in, it's like pretty much picking up the energy in the room and going with it. And people wrote some amazing stuff, and one of the stories, the things that most affected me there, was this one woman. She came every single time and never said a word. And I knew from things other people had said that she was in there for murder, related to domestic violence, you know, to protect her kids. And I knew she was a very devout Christian. But she would go outside on the breaks and study this tree that was outside in the quad. And I talked to her one day, and I said, you know, great, you love that tree. I see you watching that tree. I've seen you now for months looking at that tree. I know that tree really means something to you. You might want to think about with me right now, you know, some experiences. Come back, and she did. She did. And she wouldn't read it. She would not read the things of the group, but she gave it to someone else and she read it. And the whole room sort of stood up and applauded. And it's like, I know that tree, I know that tree. And that actually wound up being a story in my collection, Horse Thief. It's just called Tree. But again, that environment where it was safe meant that eventually she started, that was the first time when she wrote about the tree. Later she shared other stories out of her life, incredible layers of trauma. And she shared stories about losing her children, and then other women started to do the same thing and how hard it was. That was the hardest thing, not getting to see your children. And I sort of realized that this environment, the guards are right outside the door. There's certain things that, you know, you could do that could get you in a lot of trouble. And people would joke around, and someone might have just come out the hole before they came to class, but it was there. And to see how these women blossomed and opened up, and also what a community developed within that room. They saw one another in other, you know, situations and environments, but in that room, everyone had everyone's backs and were really nurturing to one another in a way that was just, I'd never seen anything as beautiful as what those women gave to one another. So that made a real impression on me. Then I get up to El Centro a few years after that, and I was working there a good number of years. And I had 3 groups up there. I was teaching poetry specifically. And my grandsons were actually attending the childcare center that was on site there. And so I felt very much part of that community already. So there was a class that was like 2nd grade through, well, essentially elementary school age. And then there was another class that was like middle schoolers, and then a young adult class, which was mainly high schoolers. Well, I mean, started high school, but it went on to people that were in like junior college. And we even had one person who was like 29 years old. And again, that group, that older group, there are a core of people who were in that group, who come to my class every week, who've gone on and become real established artists in their own right here in the community. One's a really well-known muralist. You drive around, you don't know you're seeing murals, but you are. Another one has recorded, I don't know, he's a hip-hop artist, but very socially conscious in the work that he does, and does a lot of work in the community with it. And he's, you know, he's known across And then another guy who's in a wheelchair, who some of you might know, seen him, well, you're going to bump into his name. He's known as Kazan. And he's been doing all this work with youth in the community. And he's now, I think, been put on the board or something, or, well, I don't know exactly what his position is, but for Full Culture or one of those art groups. So, which is significant, right? So so someone else went off to New York and has become an actor. But they would come, and it was like a creative hub where they could, bounce stuff off me, bounce stuff off one another. And again, it was that continuity and an environment where they really knew one another and felt safe. So then I go to Antioch and Richard Huger House, which of course is very different. And you've got a set class that's got X number of weeks. And at Antioch, you've got to pass people, fail them, and at Huger House, this the end of the class, and boom, they're gone. So it's very, very different. There wasn't that continuity, but in those classes, and there was a lot of them over a period of like 10 years, I'd meet people who had the same needs. People now who were really struggling with severe mental illness. I had one student at Antioch who'd been sort of some steady, pretty high-ranking position at Boeing, and then he came home and found that his wife, who was bipolar, had murdered their daughter and killed herself. Well, that's quite a bit of trauma to deal with, And here he was at Antioch to get his degree, but he's also bringing this with him and was needing to process it, And so what would happen is the class would end, and these people would sign up for my next class, whatever it was, because they wanted the continuity, because they found a teacher that they felt that they could be vulnerable with, but also safe with. So it's out of all that, I started to realize that I really need to be able to have a situation where I can present this model, and make available this model in a way that's got a real secure home base. I tried doing it sort of independently, but you have to rent a room, and then people got to figure out how to get to the room costs money. There were all these different things, and it really was not working. And it was one of those students that I first met at Hugo House, who was struggling with severe mental illness, that told me about the cafe. She said, I think you'd really like that place, Anna. You should come, let's go down there for lunch sometime and you can check it out. She goes, I think you might really want to teach there. Well, she was right. And so it's all volunteer. I signed up to do a class, and it was kind of like the same thing that used to happen at Antioch and Hugo House, except now it's the whole class, kind of like, can we just keep going? And so it was just a sort of a natural thing. We had the space. We had the backing of the cafe. And as they say, in some ways, the rest is history. However, in that history, there is some stuff that I think is really important learning that I think is actually of value, whether you're working in public schools or wherever you are, when you're encountering people who, in one way or another, are dealing with writing and language. And one thing I found out very quickly is that, some people will come into the room who are quite confident in, that they've no learning disabilities or anything, and they've actually had quite good experiences of writing and enjoy writing. That was their experience in school. But you have the complete flip side of that, where people have had terrible experiences and have no confidence whatsoever. And, they haven't a clue about punctuation, all these different things. Their handwriting is illegible, and sometimes that can be, if you have certain conditions, it can make it really hard to hold a pen, And the thing is, Safe Place is elastic enough that it can accommodate every single level there's no having to sort of split things off into different groups. It's like, because everybody, wherever you're at, is okay, and we'll proceed from there. And when it comes, and what I'm most interested in is not, like people say things to me, like new people when they come in, it's like, so is this what you want us to do? You know, no, it's not what I want you to do. You know, I'll give a prompt, but that's just to kind of like, you know, stir something. And, you know, maybe awaken a memory, or it gives you some idea or whatever. You go with it. It might take you in a direction that seems completely unrelated to what the prompt was. That's okay. You know, someone walked in a couple weeks ago, says, I got something I need to write about. You know, already felt that need. It's okay, write it. So there's that aspect, you know, and then new people also, are we supposed to turn them in like they're going to get graded? It's like, no. That's, you know. At the same time, you know, people do want to learn the skills. Maybe not right off the bat. But the main thing is that if you can hold a pen and paper and you've got the basics of writing down, and everyone's got their stories, you know, those are yours. And each one of us has got unique stories and experiences, so tapping into those, we're all equals on this front, you know? And if you can get that down on paper so that you know, it's true, sometimes people really, I can't read my own writing, you know, when it comes to share time. We all have that, right? But in general, people can read and share it. And that's, at that point, that's what matters. Because the language is then alive. We share and it comes into the room and it's alive. Now, some people want to go on and figure out, you know, how to edit their work, or maybe type it up and stuff, and that I'll get to that more when the whole thing with the book, you know, a big issue, right? But other people don't. I mean, there's one guy that's been coming for years and years now, and at the end of every class, he makes a paper airplane out of his writing, flies it across the room to Anne, who she's not here yet. She's my sort of like right hand in there. She's another volunteer at the cafe. She kind of like backs me up when I can't be there. But he always flies it over to Anne, and she'll take it home and type it up for him. You know? And that's okay too. Now, obviously, if he was in school, that wouldn't get him very far. So, there's all these different levels. I tell you what frustrates me is that I just wish, you know, I wish sometimes that I could multiply myself into more people, so that with more energy, so that the people that do really want to pay more attention to these skills outside of the room, that there was more opportunity to do that. Right now, it isn't. It's something I have a vision of, maybe in the future, if there's a way to get funding and more of a team working, that we could do more of that kind of more one-on-one work or small group work to push things to the next level, and also offer classes about different aspects of writing craft for people that want to go and explore that more seriously. But here's the thing. I also work for Path with Art, and some people in here, like Cathy and Steve, you're both real Path with Art people. I don't see any others off the top that I know have been big into Path with Art. And Path with Art is wonderful too, and they're working with the same population. Okay, but one of the big differences is that these are classes that come to an end. Okay, and there's also certain requirements to, you know, to keep the whole thing going, of that you can only miss so many classes. You have to be able to commit to showing up. And I think that's important. There's a place for that. But not everybody's there yet. And part of the way that some people can get there is by having something that doesn't put those kind of pressures. Where you can, you know, some people have a lot of health issues that they're up for a while and doing okay, and then the health issues will take them out. Or, you know, some other setback in their lives. And I always say to people, safe place is here. You know, when you're ready, when you're better, we're here. We're waiting. We're not going anyplace. And I think having that is very, very important. And so that's something I see, I kind of feel it's missing in Parent with Art. But I also feel that having it in individual buildings, as it were, where there's already a center. That's one of the things about the cafe that I want to add, is that because the cafe is in and of itself, it's a community. Where you've already got people in this building, whether it's coming for lunch, they've got their recovery circle, they've got maybe another class, because there's other offerings, the yoga classes, and there's some other writing classes, there's different art classes that come through. So people might just be there hanging out, playing the game of cards, hanging out with their friends. There's open mic nights once a month. So there's a lot of different things that build that community and that kind of home base that the cafe becomes. And so Safe Place, here's the cafe, and it's this home base, and here's Safe Place within that community. So it doesn't mean that people then got to get on a bus or go trek some other place to get to their class. It's right there. And I love that. I love that. It makes all kinds of things possible that otherwise would not be possible. I want to now talk a little bit about this thing about the book. Someone asked me, Taumstar asked me, we're going to do another book anytime soon. And I had to say, well, no, not anytime soon. Why the book? I thought doing a book was important for a number of different reasons. And the CD, it's really part of the same project, the book and the CD. Because there's a magic that happens in Safe Place. With the share time, so people are writing, there's the prompt, there's the writing, and then the share time. And nobody's under pressure to share. It's amazing how many people come for the first time. And you can tell when they come in and you hear the word share and sort of like start to grab their bag and head for the door. Says no pressure. There's people who've been coming for years, and for whatever reason, they can't read. And once people know that, I would say 9 times out of 10 at least, that new person will wind up choosing to read, and then they're all kind of high afterwards, because part of what happens with the reading, right, is that it's kind of goody-goody all around, right, because you hear these stories, so you're learning stuff new, your own experience and insight into what you're dealing with starts to expand more, because you're seeing how, number one, you're not alone out here. And people know that in their heads, but when you get it into the actual stories, and stories, if you think about it, are the main way that we learn. I always think about that in school when everybody's sitting down and doing these numbers and this, that, the other. But stories are how we really, really learn about history, about culture, about our family, all these things. So the stories and the sharing of them enriches everybody that hears them. But also the validation that happens for the person that shares, that they can share and their story doesn't fall upon deaf ears, as it were, or they don't get put down or saying your grammar was wrong or whatever. That their story is received and appreciated. We have tears in there sometimes, and we have a whole lot of laughter. I was just talking about my right hand, Anne, and here she is. So the sharing and that this magic, sort of, I call it magic because it always feels like it every week. I mean, there's never a week that I'm not blown away by the diversity of different ways that the same prompt and what it triggers and how many places you go. It's always super entertaining, and it always feels like, God, this is like gold dust in here. You've got to find a way that we can somehow share this out with the world. And a big part of that is because, from my own experiences, and just stories of other people, but I have a lot of direct experience, mainly through being a parent of 4 special needs kids. and of kind of like the stereotypes and stuff that are out there that kind of hold people down, the ideas of what a person who's got behavior challenges, you know, or different kinds of behaviors, or this whole thing about does laziness exist? You get that a lot in that school. But I remember a principal saying to my son one time, you know, let's just face it, Charlie, you're lazy. Well, no, he's not lazy. He's not lazy. He's got learning disabilities up to here, and he's feeling like he's completely stupid because it's not making any sense to him, but he knows he's not stupid because he's smart over here. So I wanted to share stuff so that, the whole thing about everyone that's on the street, everyone that's homeless, they're all drug addicts. Right, you know, and if you are a drug addict, well, therefore you're a morally inferior person. You know, so all these things need to be broken down. And so I felt like doing a book where people's own voices and stories go out into the community. It helps address those stereotypes. It also has the potential to reach out to other people, like the people that come to the cafe and come into Safe Place. And it's a way of saying, hello, you're not alone. You know, we're here. We know your story. Come join us. So it's a validation for those people. So we went about, and I say we, right now I'm talking about Anne and I, because she's the one that writes the grant, which is something I'm hopeless at, and we couldn't function without it. We wrote a grant because there was no way to do this without some financial stuff. You know, there's only so much you can do as a volunteer. And then, but the big thing was there was going to have to be a quantum leap from all the rough drafts and stuff that come out of the class week to week, some of which are like brilliant first drafts. You know, you could type them up and not really have to do a whole lot of revision. And there's others that you can see the gold sort of glittering in there, but it needs to be dusted off and released to truly shine, and that's, you know, the revision process helps with that. So doing the book involved having to sit down and spend a lot of one-on-one time with some people, or groups of two, to really get into like how are you going to push your work to the next level and polish it and finish it. Also, how to present your work. You know, it's one thing to share, and that can be very daunting inside Safe Place to share the work with one another, but to go out into the world and stand up in front of an audience and read is another thing. And we were going to do this CD. You know, that was a part of it because I wanted people to actually be able to hear the voices. Going into a recording studio, you know, how did that feel safe? You know, you go in there and you've got this whole sound. Anyway, so there was a lot of kind of coaching and that kind of intensive work along the way. But I tell you, probably for me, the high point of the absolute, I just got such a rush out of this, was going to the studio, and we went sometimes, I think Taumstar, I think it was just her and me. Sometimes we'd go in twos, I think it was groups of three. It was really varied based on me. But this one guy, he was so nervous. I mean, I almost felt like he was going to pass out. And it's like, how much encouragement can you give somebody, you know? He went in there, and he did an incredible job. It's just like, he came through, and he comes out, I'm not kidding you, it's like, he was glowing like literally a red lamp in the dark. Mm-hmm. And he says, that has to be one of the best experiences of my entire life. Wow. Oh. You know, that's kind of the ultimate thing you can hear. So when it's, why not more books? I wish we did have the wherewithal to have books come out more regularly. But I know that if I tried to do that more regularly, the burnout would take me out of commission. Both as, and I also have to keep, as an artist, I think it's important that there's a balance. My teaching and creative work is part of both parts of me, and I have to nurture and honor both those parts and not let one part completely drown out the other part. So my ambition is that sort of to see a way to expand, to build on this model and expand and bring more people in, and maybe to expand, to be able to go into the recovery cafes expand. There's new cafes, that's the term, right? New cafes that are springing up. What are some of the places, really?
So the Recovery Cafe Network is based in Seattle, and we have right now 12 to 15 groups across the country that are either open or about to open in some process. And they are Spokane in Washington, Everett, San Jose, California, Oregon Valley, Washington, Medford, Oregon, Longmont, Colorado, Lowell, Massachusetts, Tulane, Indiana, Lexington, Kentucky, Dayton, Ohio, Vancouver, Washington, Clark County, and there are a few more, but those are the ones that come to mind. Visit our website, recoverycafenetwork.org, to learn more about us.
So I mean, that's really, really exciting, And I hear about all that, and I think, oh, gee, I wish there could be a safe place somewhere. But anyway, we'll see what happens down the road. But that's why, we can't go. We need to. The bottom line has got to be that ongoing week by week safe place being available. Everything, that's the foundation of everything else. So I probably left out all kinds of things, but I'm gonna, maybe what we could do is, there's a couple of quick questions. We got a number of different students who are gonna read, which is guaranteed to be the high point of the whole afternoon. But, maybe we can just for like 15 minutes or so, if people got a question. Is that clock right?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. What does it say?
3:02
right now.
Are there any questions or comments, things that people want to, things I overlooked, especially guys who are in the room?
It happens once a week, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
Unless you take a break, or you must have vacation and breaks every so often.
Yeah, but it's rare, because usually we manage to work it out so that, like yesterday I didn't go because I needed to have the time for this, so Anne covered for me, and so there are weeks when, there's a lot of weeks when we're both there, but there's weeks when Anne's busy doing something else, Yeah.
Is this book being self-published? Will you be like on Amazon where you can?
It is on Amazon, yeah.
It's on Amazon.
It's on,
That was our first book, Raven Chronicles Press. We've done a magazine since 1991, but this is the first time we did a book, and it turned out wonderful. And so it is on Amazon, but as I said, if you can't get the CD in the book if you buy it on Amazon.
Is that an expensive process to be able to find it on Amazon?
No, that's one of the things. It's
free.
It's free?
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good price. Yeah.
I mean, for us to do it on it.
Sure.
It takes a lot of work to get the book. That was my first book, but I think I did a good layout and design, and then, a lot of people helped. Anna's a great friend took the photo on the cover. And,
I mean, you're a publisher.
But that's what publishing on demand is.
Sure. You
get it done. The cover, we have to pay like $450 to everyone. The artist is doing the cover, but we're learning. My partner and I are learning how to do the cover. But anyway, but when you put it on Amazon, they don't charge you anything, but they do take royalty when it sells. We get a very small royalty. That's where they get their money. But if on the website, it's on the website full price, but we pay for shipping. But then you get the CD on our website, yeah.
And what's the full price?
Is it $14.99?
Yeah, $14.99.
And with the CD.
That's Raven Chronicles.
Raven Chronicles.
Yeah.
So you can buy it directly from Raven Chronicles
mail it within a
with
few
the
days.
CD.
Yeah.
But if you buy it from
You
Amazon,
can't get the CD.
they don't
They don't
give
allow
you the
you to
CD.
do that. because they have a CD company that would be, they say, is a conflict. And anyway, I have to ship the CDs to them, you know, wherever it's printed in South Carolina.
So you can buy it from the actual group that makes it, Raven Chronicles?
Yeah, right on their website.
Okay.
Yeah. And we mail it free.
Yeah, and it's also like, I just realized one thing I should talk about a little bit is some of the places that we've gone with this book, because we've done actually a number of different events over the last few years. But one of them is Elliott Bay Books. We had a reading there with the Todd Marshall, who at that time was the Poet Laureate of Washington State. And he reached out to me saying, you know, he had heard about this and would like to sponsor a reading, you know, with us at Elliott Bay Books, which was a lovely reading, and consequently, it was on Elliott Bay's shelf.
Yeah.
But if it's not anymore, you can order it through Elliott Bay Books. You know, and I would imagine that the same would be true of other independent bookstores, probably like Third Place Books and stuff, that you would be able to order it. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. Just the way you were describing kind of the growth of this model and things you figured out. And I'm sure there were times where people felt, oh, nobody can do this except you. But if people are, I mean, they're supporting you and doing the work, but it's expanding to many places. That's it. You know, I mean, it really is the model, and people are learning how to do it. And, it works.
Yeah, I mean, Anne, you haven't taught before, right?
Not a writing class, no.
No. So, I mean, but obviously I'm not there when you're covering it. But, so I don't know what you really get up to. But, you know, I get all this really good feedback from people. In fact, this one person who always makes a point of saying, it was really good last week when it was Anne and you weren't here.
Oh, that's cute.
So, yeah, the potential is absolutely there. You know, it doesn't have to be me. So, anything else? Yeah, Nancy.
Since funding has come up, what is the vehicle for individual donations to be targeted right to Safe Play?
No idea. It's a very good
That's a
planted
good,
a seed, though.
good question.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something that maybe we should think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment. I came here to support a couple of my friends, and after listening to you, I mean, I just have this yearning to just write my story. It's been wanting to get out for so long. I've been off the streets for 2 years, and it's just getting better and better. And I'm able to talk about it now without going into depression or crying. And so this is really inspiring.
Great.
And I can't wait to start.
Great. That's good.
You're fine. Sorry.
Well, maybe before I bring the people from Safe Place up to read, I'll just mention some of the things we've done other than the Elliott Bay thing. I've got to try and... We had our launch for the book was at Jacksonville Productions, and I mean, it was packed. It was just lovely. And I think everybody that was there was kind of, you know, the people from Safe Place were walking on air. I was. Then we did a reading at the cafe, you know, focusing on the book specifically. We did a reading with One Night Count, an event that was held outside City Hall on the steps in the cold. Bob, you were part of that reading that night, I mean, yeah. And we had spin-off things where like people individually, like for instance, Bam, you also have a poem on Claudia Castro-Luna, who's now the Poet Laureate, on the project that she did, the map, the digital map of Seattle. We've got a poem on there. And she first heard you and encountered you through that reading on One Night Count and reached out. So things happen for individuals, you know, like that too. Last summer, before then, we did an event at the University of Washington with another writer who's a professor there, Her name's Josephine Ensign, and she's got a book. What's it called? Catching Homelessness. Catching Homelessness. And she invited us to be a part of this event, which was sort of like, I forgot what the actual department was, the title of it. And so I gave a talk there, and we had a few people read. What else have we done? Oh, last summer there was the King County Conference for Recovery and Wellness, which I was invited to do a workshop about Safe Place. And Angel, who's not here today, she's one of the featured writers in here, she led that with me, which was really nice too, to have someone from the community of the class then sort of step forward and play more of a leading role. I mean, and I should mention that Angel is one of several people who, since I first met them years ago, their recovery has progressed enough, so now she's working. She's not able to come anymore, but that's because she's out, and she's working with people in recovery, which is really cool. And there's other people like that have moved on in their lives. And then some people will be gone and they come back again, which is also nice. What events am I forgetting? There's some others, but anyway, we did an event not that long ago at Seattle University for Women's Month, which was neat. And anyway, you get the idea. So we're not just in that room every week. It's actually people going out. And I should, Sarah's moment here, that I've also been editing this anthology, upcoming anthology for Raven Chronicles called Take a Stand, Art Against Hate, which has been a mammoth project. And a piece of Sarah's is actually going to be in the anthology, and two of someone else's photographs are going to be in the anthology. So there's other opportunities. Oh, we had somebody who became Artist of the Week at Jack Store Productions, who's in the book. And so there's all these different things where people go out.
Who was that?
That was Angel. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Well, unless there's any other burning questions that somebody's sitting on, I am going to start introducing folks from the cafe. And we've got quite a few people reading. It does not reflect our usual diversity. We're very heavily female today. And we also don't have the cultural, racial diversity that we usually have. We have a lone male representative. Awesome. You're our diversity.
Should we have a women's march after this?
Yes, but you can come. You can be
Anytime.
So, actually, why don't you kick off the reading, Bob? And the other thing is the things that people write about, the range, it's not everybody processing their trauma or the dark days. We go all over the map. It's like embracing your whole life. And one thing I do put emphasis on is the importance of bringing moments of joy and humor sort of into the writing. Not in every piece, but if we leave that out, we're not actually honoring our total selves. Because no matter how rough you've had it in your life, you've still got moments of joy there that you need to remember in order to be able to build on those and go forward. So bam.
No, that's my name. It's Bong with an A. Not bang. No, it sounds like bong. With an A. Yeah, like water bong, or the sound of a gong. Bong. It's got an A, not an O. You have to stretch the A. Bong. In Vietnamese, it means equal. Not anything fancy like equality and liberty. It's more common, like same. Like these two are the same, or we are the same. My whole name in Vietnamese means man of the people, among them. and goes all the way back to ancient Vietnam. Anyways, we're just talking about the Americanized way to say the same name. In my language, it's not even said this way. There's a whole lot of accent marks missing in your American language. The A should have an accent mark, like a bamboo hat, over it. That makes the A sound low, then high, then low again, all in one letter. No, your language is too flat to say it. No way you can pronounce it. Okay. Bang. No, lower, then higher, then lower. Start with a dip, go up, then pull back. Bang. Forget it, let's talk about something else. And you can practice later. And no, I don't want to go get stoned because of my name.
Okay, so Cathy. Now, I should say, in way of introduction to Cathy's piece, that I also brought Shakespeare into the room. And one week we did the famous Hamlet speech, to be or not to be, and people did with it what they wanted.
Patiently while bubble up. To be or not to be, aka early morning angst. To live the length of one's years or end it with a stroke of a sharp knife. Sharp knife? I don't have a sharp knife. Besides, so much blood is too much mess. That's how I suffered the aches and pains of age. Arthritis tugs at my back. Age weakens my legs and spreads fat upon my thighs. Perhaps it is better to cease the suffering, better to hang myself from a sturdy rope. Hang myself, me, I who can scarcely tie my shoes, let alone make them not strong enough to hold this old body's heft and stand on a chair. Not happening, baby. Oh, but this early morning angst reminds me of a foul mattress that delays sleep, offering endless nights of pain and sorrow. Surely 'tis better to find the high place and jump to my end. Jump? High place? How is Aurora Bridge? Does the bus even go that way? I think not. Forget it. High places scare me. Alas, too tired to live, too scared to die. I guess I'll see if I have any chocolate left around.
And we have a couple of people who it's their very first time reading in public. So I have to give them a special hand. So K-Bob.
You got this.
The prompt was sacred spaces or places. The sacred place of my childhood was in a bay tree that stood in a small forest on the north side of the hill on which our house stood. The land was among the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains, which are not far from the Monterey Bay. The hillside was very steep, almost vertical, or at least it seemed so when I was a youngster scrambling about it, trying not to tumble down between the trees. There were, however, deer trails that crossed the hillside here and there, so I knew the terrain was climbable if I were careful. This was my favorite place in the summertime, since it would be cool here even on hot days. My tree, as I would call it, had a wide, thick branch shooting off the side of the trunk. Right at the spot where the branch met the trunk was the best place of all to sit and ponder things or to spend time in my imagination. Bright green moss lay in a thick carpet on that branch in particular, and it made a welcoming and comfy seat for me. Here I could escape from... I don't know how I was lucky enough to be able to disappear to this place and not be missed, but I did it as often as I could. The bark of the tree, where the moss was absent, was dark brown and rough in the craggy spots, and smoother and light gray on the surfaces between the deeper fissures. My branch hung over the steep hillside, so that the farther I went out on the branch, the farther I was above the ground. When I ventured out toward the end of this limb, my heart would pound a little harder with some perceived danger apparent. Sometimes I would bring a book here to read privately without shame or fear of repercussion from my impossibly unpredictable father. Sometimes I would bring writing materials to journal with. Whether I was using a pencil or my imagination, I knew there was safety here because my father and brother never came to this side of the hill. I never named the tree, who was such a close companion. I simply thought of it as my tree. But now, as I am learning some Buddhist concepts, I have come to learn the term Maitri, Maitri, which means loving kindness. And that makes perfect sense to me. Yay. And now somebody that goes back to the very, very beginnings of Safe Place, and is very special to a lot of people in the group, but very nervous about reading in public. So this is a first. Shelby.
Shelby! Hey, Shelby!
Oh my God. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
I'm so happy we're all here. Okay, so I have one poem in the book. It's called Roll With It. It was built on a prompt of personal recipe for good health, and then I changed the title to Roll With It. So it's got some different stuff. Okay. So, okay. Live alone if at all possible. Live alone and face yourself. Find out exactly who you are. Sleep on clean cotton sheets, organic cotton. Buy yourself 4 bed pillows to support your comfort. Allow comfort. Shower before bed and sleep like a baby. Look forward to dreams. Enjoy the show. It's your production filled with your creations. Do yoga whenever you want. Make sure you have a special place. Learn to accept yourself. Can you be as loving and kind to who you are as you can to the people you love and admire? Learn to roll. Remember rolling down grassy slopes. Remember somersaults. Remember that roundy feeling that makes you smile. Find rivers full of river rocks that are worn smooth. Drive to beaches. Find the inlets and the sounds and the haystack rocks, standing in the surf like castles. Find out about bees. Follow a bee if you can. Watch bees if you can. Imagine what the world might look like if you had 5 eyes, one on top of your head. Imagine your tree. Feel your roots. Make leaves and many blossoms. Dance with the spirit of the air. Dream of mountains and temperature and moving your legs and opening and closing your mouth and sound. Remember how trees in the mountains and elsewhere make cathedrals with their geometry. Breathe and believe in what you experience in creation. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to remember that the odds against creation are 50 billion to 50 billion and one. Roll with that one that has made everything possible. Repeat as needed, share, enjoy.
Okay, so I'm going to invite Cathleen up, who is also her first time to read in front of you.
This one's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. It's called The Unexpected Guest. Get on this bus and head north. I wasn't dressed to head north, but I did it anyways. I felt completely lost. I was told to leave my keys in the stairwell and don't look back. I had no idea where I would sleep or eat and no longer had my cell phone. I was told to wait at Walgreens, which was closed for the holidays. If I didn't do what these voices told me to do, they would tell me they would hurt my family and I would never meet my soulmate. And if that wasn't bad enough, if I didn't cooperate with these voices inside my head, they would stab me. And it would feel real as it could be. It started snowing, and I was not dressed for snow. I was wearing canvas keds for shoes, and they were soaked through. A jacket that looked warm from Old Navy, but it was not waterproof, and jeans. I walked for miles and hours in the snow, and I was starting to feel hypothermic when I came across a home. The voices said it was a friend of mine's place, and I could take a warm shower and stay there for 3 days before continuing on my journey. The door was open, and a bath towel was placed as if this friend they called the Hobbit was expecting a guest. I don't remember feeling so pleased. I took a shower and crawled into his bed covered with books. I left the books on the bed because I always have liked heavy blankets on top of me during fall and winter months. The books made it feel like heavy blankets on top of me. Suddenly, the light was turned on, and a man with a beard stood with a board with a nail in it, with a threatened look on his face. And the woman next to him had a look of fear on her face. They told me to leave quickly or else. I was startled, and I couldn't get my shoes on fast enough. I ran out the door with just the clothes on my back, and the police were there. I tried to hide in the forest of bamboo-type weeds, and I couldn't get anywhere no matter how hard I tried. The bamboo prevented me from being able to go any further. The police officer shined a light on me and asked me to come down from the hill and talk to him. It was obvious to him that I needed psychiatric help because he had also seen me at the Walgreens earlier that day. I walked my soggy self over to the aid car, and the police officer helped me get in. This time I was missing from society only a couple weeks instead of months, like the last manic episode. And this time, my dictating voices were finally killed off with medication once and for all. At last, I was free to live life again.
Okay, so let's have Taumstar. Okay, let's hear it for Taumstar.
I believe this was the first piece I ever wrote. It sounds more like a complaint. Anything but. I would rather pound nails attempt to saw a board square, shovel sand and gravel, dig a ditch, clean out the barn, milk the cow. I would rather stack lumber, lay a row of brick, burn wood on an open fire, cut grass with a push mower, prune bushes and make them round, and pick dandelions by the dozens. Dandelions. I would rather wash dishes in hot soapy water, listen to classics at breakfast. I like to eat eggs with potatoes and sour cream, vacuum the floor and dust everything. Open the doors, throw back shutters, drink coffee and eat cake. I would rather drown worms, catch rats in a trap, feed crumbs to a pigeon, chase the cow from the garden, pet the cat and feed the dog, play my flute, or blow bubbles. So many things I'd rather do than sit quietly and write poetry.
Actually, Taumstar, I think that was your second piece because the first one was Thanksgiving on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I think that brings us to our last reader, Sarah.
Go, girl.
I practiced earlier today. Hi everyone. Hi camera. Now you can see me doing this. Tia, I'm okay in front of a group.
Thank you.
Just to throw that
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm Sarah. I want to, before I read this, I'd like to share with everyone that after 6.5 years of homelessness, I'm now in permanent housing. And coming to the Safe Place Writer Circle, I've explored my homelessness, daily life kind of thing. I've explored that a lot in what I've written because that's something that, well, it's been going on for a while and it was a major part of my life. But I want to thank Anna and Anne and Café, obviously, just for providing this place, like you said, the continuity. You know, not everybody makes it every single week, but it's always there to go to, and it's just been amazing. And this group of all the amazing people that are here today, just thank you everyone, because it's just amazing. Okay, so this is kind of a mashup of several stories I had written, and Anna helped me with this a lot actually.
Give yourself credit.
Okay, so I did the final edit in writing everything out, like moments before that, reading at Seattle U for International Women's Day in month. Yeah, like literally caught the last bus to get there on time. Please, you're gonna need some water. Because while I'm technically not nervous, all the saliva disappears from my mouth, which can be the last time. Anywho, this is 3 vignettes of homelessness. It's like 3 kind of little parts that I won't say while I'm reading what they are, but it's cops, passing time, and sleep. So this is, here it is, 3 vignettes of homelessness. Okay, here's a heads up. Being homeless and existing in various public places invariably leads to interaction with the police. Oh yeah, and private security personnel hired by this business or that church because someone before you really blew shit up, thereby necessitating periodic overnight surveillance of what used to be a prime super sweet sleep spot. That's a lot of alliteration. But interacting with private security is usually less consequential and thereby easier to deal with because they have to call the cops to issue a criminal trespass. Otherwise, it's just the minor irritation of being rudely awoken by louder. Cops harassed me and Scott a few times. Once we were camped out on some cardboard on a sloped strip of grass in Lower Queen Anne, affectionately called a park. when a group of dumbass drunks showed up to party. It wasn't long until SPD came because of the noise complaints and the drinking and the litter. So the drunks all got tickets for open containers and they moved on. Then the cops turned around and told me and Scott to beat it. But where can we go? After that, we never slept there again. It's easier to exist during the day. Scott and I start spending time in Donnelly Garden next to Seattle Repertory Theater. Most of the time it's quiet, with no one else around. We sit on the steps and just relax, enjoying nature, clouds, trees, crows, and a lot of little birds, including my favorite hummingbirds, and of course seagulls. We've adopted a pet seagull, Dudley. He visits us regularly. True, Scott and I call every seagull in the entire world Dudley, or Duds for short, but we always know it's our Duds for two reasons. One, he has a large hole in one of his webbed feet. And two, he spends a long time staring at the ground with his head cocked in earnest concentration. Poor Duds. We wonder if some nasty jerk gave him drugs and it screwed him up. We also like Donnelly Garden for the weather protection provided by its trees, shade on sunny days, and at least some cover from the ubiquitous misty Seattle rain. We get decent Wi-Fi reception from Seattle Rep or Microsoft, but on top of it all, and this is important, we can easily spot the approach of any Seattle Center security personnel while sitting here, which provides us with ample time to amend any rule-breaking behavior before they arrive. Plus, here in Donnelly Garden, the cops never come by. Finding a good sleep spot is critical. Scott and I find a great doorway in front of a veterinary clinic. Unknowingly, this is the last doorway we will sleep in. We need to wake up at 6 a.m. so as to be up and out before staff comes to open the clinic. But today is different. The woman we believe to be the owner is here, and she is early. We feel guilt and shame for blocking her door with the cardboard we put down for warmth and cushion, plus all of the bags. Why do I insist on carrying so much? The weight is screwing up my back. A cement bed, plus my overwhelming need to be prepared, hence all the bags. This equals lumbar muscle spasms. I wonder what the vet thinks of us, and I desperately want to explain our situation. Oh, good morning. I've been clean and sober for 6 months now. Sorry for still being here, but we were kept awake all night by our drunk neighbor in the next doorway. We won't have time to clean up other people's garbage before we leave, etc. But of course, I don't. She doesn't want to hear it. She wants to open her clinic. Regardless of the work Scott and I are doing on ourselves, we're still invading her space. During the 6.5 years of living on the street, I never get busted for peeing in public. And I never get busted for drinking in public. I am criminally trespassed from Seattle Center for an entire month. But that's a story for another day. One thing is for sure, if I do ever get busted by the cops, my hope is it won't be for something asinine or petty, like trying to stay warm or catch some sleep. Now, every day I work on becoming a better person. And someday I will be able to explain my situation and tell my story. Maybe then the vet will understand.
So that is our reading. Let's give them all another hand. For like another 15 minutes or so, which gives a chance to look at the books, to mingle, talk to one another, and a couple of people, if you want to stick around afterwards, help us straighten out the chairs and put them back where they were. Thank you so much, everybody. Yay!